Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you all here, and certainly members of the press. I want to just inform you that we've had a very productive couple of hour meeting and talking about a significant issue regarding the Rio Grande area. I know this is not new to any of you here, but the deplorable conditions of how we address homelessness, and particularly the criminal element that's finding a home there and flourishing more than we would want to have happen. So the opportunity we've had to meet together as stakeholders and elected officials this morning has been very productive, and certainly we've all understand that the challenges. It's not an easy issue. There's not an easy fix, but I can tell you that we're all committed. The executive branch, the legislative branch, the city, the county, and even members of the private sector that have contacted us are saying it's time, we can do better. We appreciate the good work that's been done. This is not something that we're starting at square number one, but it's time for us to lengthen our stride and do better things and accomplish, I think, better and higher goals of what we can actually do here as a community. So we also have talked about agreeing on success. Again, the speaker has helped us define success as when we can actually go back to Pioneer Park, meaning the public, where the business communities there, those who reside and work in that area feel safe, where people can go with their families and enjoy that part of our community and a beautiful part of our capital city. And so that's going to be our goal, in fact, that kind of success going forward. We recognize it's going to take more law enforcement. That's probably going to be a key element of this. We want to do what we can to eliminate the criminal element, and we are not going to tolerate that and going to enhance our law enforcement opportunities. We also recognize that there's needs for bed space. That's not just for those who will be prosecuted for criminal activity, but for those who need treatment, those who are involved in drug addiction, those who have mental health problems. And so the ability for us to have more bed space and have opportunities for treatment is an important part of what we've discussed here today. So again, I feel good about the outcome of this meeting this morning. Certainly from the executive branch office, we're going to task the lieutenant governor to kind of be the point person to help coordinate with the other stakeholders here, the legislature and the local communities and the private sector. And we are, as a state, as the executive branch, committed to work closely with the legislature, closely with Salt Lake City, closely with Salt Lake County, to see if we can, in fact, make things much better. I believe we can, and I believe that we will. So with that, we'll turn some time first to the Speaker, then to the Senate President. Sean Reyes is our Attorney General, then Mayor Biskupski. No, you're going to go last. And we'll have Mayor McAdams go, and then Mayor Biskupski will let you bad cleanup plus one. All right. Thank you.
What did you say? You say me?
I said you.
Okay. I didn't catch the order. I want you to take a mental note and think about today. I've had 15 years of public service, and I've never been in a meeting like I was just in. We all have jurisdictions. We're public servants. We have we have responsibilities. We have roles that we play. And when we leave these offices that we serve, there will be someone that will be elected in these same offices, and they will do the same things to serve the public and their constituents. But what happened today is not part of that script. It's not what we do as public servants. We have the areas of responsibility, but we seldom have, that in my memory, have ever coordinated in the way that you're seeing right now. You have, when you look at Washington and you see the rancor and the partisanship, understand that there is no political party here. Understand there is no turf here. What we did this morning with the leadership of our governor calling this summit is we had some very blunt conversations. There were some things that were discussed that I think needed to be discussed amongst the different jurisdictions, and I cannot be more pleased and more optimistic that you are seeing a multi-jurisdictional commitment to people in need and a commitment to go after the lawlessness and the crime and the violence that's going on right now. And I don't think it ever is overcome unless you had a moment like we've had today. and the commitment we have. I'm not going to be overly forthcoming on the details of the plan, and there's a lot of details of that plan that still need to be worked out. But for me, I've signaled to this in the days leading up to this meeting. There had to be action items. We couldn't just circle it. We couldn't just talk about it anymore. I had to know coming out of that room that we were all in this together. We all do this together, and that's what you have. And to the leaders and those that joined and have stepped forward and I'm telling you, I've been in this area. Unfortunately, with all the work that's been done and the good work that's been done, we have had, in some ways, the perfect being the enemy of good. We have not been able to move forward together because I think that we've not found that general plan or that overlap where we can all work together. I believe you have that this morning, and you have a Herculean effort that is moving forward from this morning on. And so I'm very happy, and I'm very appreciative of all the leaders that are here. And there's more, not just the ones that are in this meeting right now. That room was packed, and there were a lot of people that will have major roles and responsibilities in this effort. We have their buy-in and their leadership and their institutional knowledge ready to be leveraged and weigh in on this crisis. And so thank you to all, and with that, I'll turn the time over to the President.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and appreciate his effort on identifying some of these issues. I thought the meeting was very productive. We're not here to tread on people's jurisdiction, but we're here to collaborate, to work together to solve a very serious problem that faces not only Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County, but our state. And the state needs to take its role in this and support and help us solve this issue. We have to walk the walk now. So we've talked the talk, now it's walk the walk. And I believe that there's the energy to do that, and I'm committed to stay involved. I think the Speaker's committed to stay involved. We're going to be led by the Lieutenant Governor, but I think we have the political will to see that this area of our beautiful city is a place where people can go and feel safe, and that those who are in need are getting the treatment and the things that they need to live a more productive life. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to give credit where credit is due, first of all, to Speaker Greg Hughes for putting short-term political considerations aside and really stepping up on this issue. As you can see, he's so dedicated. He's been losing sleep. He's been so focused that he didn't even shave coming today. He's part of his undercover operation duties. Speaker Hughes, President NIEDERHAUSER in the Senate, and all of the members of their bodies who've been working not just now, but for the last several years on issues pertaining to those who are homeless, who are transitioning, who are displaced. Similarly, I want to acknowledge the leadership of Governor Gary Herbert and Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox and the agencies that work in their administration, the executive directors who also have been working very closely to execute programs to try to get resources to those in need downtown. Our two mayors who you'll hear from, Mayor Biskupski in Salt Lake City, Mayor McAdams in Salt Lake County, and their teams as well. The law enforcement teams, Chief Brown, Sheriff Winder, now acting Sheriff Carver, Sim Gill, the district attorney for the county. They have all been working in a very collaborative manner. This issue is something that's very personal to all of us, and we all have our own stories for another day that we could share about why this affects us as a community and as a state. I did want to acknowledge the success that we've seen so far from the city and the county, and applaud again the leadership from the mayors, the collaboration that they've been able to bring, for instance, with Operation Project Diversion, to be able to protect the citizens, to identify those who are criminals and address them properly, and identify those who are in need of services and try to get those resources to them. working with organizations like the ACLU, working with public defenders and prosecutors all in this process, so that while we can show some tough love, that we are as humane and that we treat people with as much dignity as possible, that is a great template for how we would like to, how my office would like to help the state proceed. Just a commitment from the Attorney General's office, whether it's on the law enforcement side, we are committed to contributing assets as a force multiplier, to Commissioner Keith Squires and public safety at the state level, to our federal partners. I might also mention the DEA and the leadership that District Agent in Charge Brian Besser has brought to this state, the energy and enthusiasm, as well as our other federal partners. Want to acknowledge all of them. This is absolutely a team effort, and today's meeting was a very good indicator that we can come together and put aside issues, because it's not a Republican issue, it's not a Democrat issue, it's a humanitarian issue that affects us all. And today I saw Utahns, leaders at all different levels coming together to address this issue. I was very proud of that. I am very proud of that. The last thing I'll mention from the AG's office, we want to make sure that from a legal standpoint, because I'm sure there'll be questions about whatever decisions we implement, supporting Lieutenant Governor Cox and others as we look at ways to address these issues. We've studied the Pottinger rules from Miami. We've looked at a lot of other different models, and if we can expand and build off of what the mayors have done in Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, I think we are headed in the right direction. So again, thank you to all of the leaders who are standing here today, and to all of their team members who they represent for coming together on this issue. I think it's a historic day for our state. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was a great conversation, and it was impressive to see the political leadership that was at the table to discuss the challenges that we see. We discussed the differences between homelessness and lawlessness, and as those issues interrelate, we have spent, Salt Lake County is, one of our primary functions is human services, and so we are the largest funder of human services related to homelessness in the Salt Lake Valley. We are not law enforcement services, so we recognize the roles of the various entities in the room, but what that conversation today was about, how we each leverage our roles and responsibilities, the opportunities that we each have to come together to address the challenges. We've spent considerable time over the last couple of years working to address the challenges we see in our homeless services system. We've recommended reforms. We've taken those recommendations to the state legislature and the governor. They have stepped forward admirably and funded some of those changes that we want to effect to our homeless services system. Those changes are underway. They are happening on schedule, and we look to see those changes really come into play in June of 2019. So our attention is now focused on the immediate. And the immediate challenges relate not to the delivery of homeless services, but the lawlessness that surround homeless services. And I recognize that there's an interplay between both homelessness and lawlessness. So the conversation today was about what resources can we bring to bear as a state, as a county, and as a city, and even federally, to address the challenges that relate to lawlessness in the Rio Grande area today. I hear from people who are vulnerable and receiving homeless services that they fear for their safety as they receive those services. I heard today from providers that worry about their employees. These are people who are on the front lines out of compassion, working to help to deliver services to our most vulnerable, and they fear for their safety in the Rio Grande area. So we cannot wait until June of 2019, when the reforms to the homeless services system come into effect. We cannot wait until then to address the lawlessness that we see in the Rio Grande. So it was a refreshing meeting this morning to see all of us come together. We spoke bluntly to each other. We addressed some of the challenges that we see and how we might address that. And there's a commitment from from the state that is refreshing. As I've said, I'm grateful for the commitment that we've seen from the state in the past with financial resources to help to address the recommendations that we've brought forward. What I saw today was more than that. It's not just an offer and commitment of financial resources, but it is to say the governor himself said, I'm all in. We are here to address this challenge. So it's now stepping forward to say we will all shoulder this burden to address the lawlessness and public safety crisis we see in the Rio Grande. I look forward to working with the leaders that stand before you today to address that. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for being here and for your patience. We had a very long discussion, but a very fruitful one, I believe. And our path forward really will have within it accountability and accessibility, which are two key factors in our ability to really have an impact in the Rio Grande neighborhood. So moving forward, what I see is tremendous opportunity to, again, collaborate and continue to work together as a team. We also are looking to bring in other community organizations as well as other counties to really help us resolve the problems that we are facing, that we know are coming to Salt Lake City because of the lack of services in other neighborhoods. So the state continues to be a very strong partner. We are very appreciative of that, and we will continue to have dialogue around how we make progress over the next 6 months in a way that we have not seen before. And I believe that you will see some change happening and some immediate actions, but some actions that will take some time as we put together this plan and that we are able to really vet out our path forward. So thank you again for being here.
Well, thanks for the comments made. As I think you all understand, this is a hard and a complex issue. But as you've heard, there's a commitment being made here by all of the different agencies in the executive branch, by the legislature, by the local communities, the Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County. We're going to be reaching out to the private sector, and they have a role to play also. We are absolutely committed to improving conditions in what we call the Rio Grande area, and do it in a humane way, respecting the fact that these people should have dignity and respect as part of humanity. But we are going to make sure that things are improved. The criminal element is going to be eliminated, and we're going to give prosecution and treatment to those who need it. So with that, we'll take a few minutes to see if there's any questions. We'll take those for a few minutes, and then we will also open up to one-on-ones for those who would like to do so.
So what is the plan then? You've all talked about collaboration. You've all talked about this. The legislature's funded $27 million for homeless services. So what are you guys going to do? Are we going to see more cops? Are we going to see street cleanings? What's going to happen?
I'll let the speaker and the president speak to that a little bit, and others, but what I will say to you, and without talking about all the details and nuances, which some need to be worked out, this is going to be a collaborative effort between the city, the county, and the state. Our agencies that have a role to play, whether it's the Department of Corrections and needs for bed space, not only bed space for criminal prosecution, but also for those who need treatment, again, mental health issues, those who have substance abuse problems. There's going to be a treatment. We are emphasizing more of the drug court experience as opposed to just lock them up and warehouse them. The coordination of law enforcement agencies between the city, the county, and the state will be a big part of that. Our workforce services, where we have people involved, that we're going to take them and say, what can we do to help you get skills necessary to transition your life to become a productive member of society? There's got to be a willingness on their part, in fact, to change and transition. And we're going to say, we're going to help you, but we expect something in return. So that'll be part of the plan. And the coordination of having all of these different entities work together is going to be unique. As you've heard already talked about, that's going to be a unique challenge. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, would you like to add anything?
So I warned you, Ben, you're not going to get the blueprint. There's details that have to be worked out. But in terms of the lawlessness, we're not going to lay out in a public way the new and ramped up and concerted effort to deal with the lawlessness. Some of that will need to be, practically speaking, done in real time. But I will tell you this, and it's a broad overview, but I absolutely believe that when we go into that area, and I wouldn't recommend it, frankly, but when we have a storefront and we have a lot of policymakers and stakeholders that have been there, and as we look across the street at the homeless population from the vantage point of this area that I want to office out of, I want to have meetings in, I want to see in real time the very issue that we're dealing with, we ask the question as we look out the window, who are we looking at? Is that a cartel drug lord or a member of a cartel? Is that a middleman, a mule that's taking drugs in from 8 blocks away? Is it someone that needs behavioral health, counseling, and a treatment bed? Is it someone that needs a hand up and needs a job and needs a chance? When we look across the street and we ask, or if you drive in this area and you ask, who are we talking about? Who is that person right there? The answer in most cases, almost all cases, is we don't know. The anonymity that exists in that area is where crime has bred and where crime has grown. It will be the goal, it will be the outcome, that we will learn who everyone is. We're going to find out what these stories are, what these people's issues are, so we can A, help where help needs to be given, whether that's transitional housing, a job, behavioral health. We need to know who you are so we can help you.
So surveillance?
Again, we're not going to get into all the issues now, but I will tell you this: there will not be. We're going to we are going to make sure that what we do with ACLU, with Attorney General Reyes mentioned. We will be. I love civil rights. I actually love the country that has civil rights. We want to protect them and defend them. We're not going to violate people's civil rights. It is absolutely part of this plan. But I will tell you that we are going to have a process where we learn who people are. I don't think a criminal element will survive in an environment like that. I don't think if you're a criminal and it is your day's goal to sell as much of your drugs as you have, that the state of Utah and its combined efforts in looking to find out and determine who people are and what their issues are, I do not believe that drug trade can exist in that environment if we do our jobs. And that's about as detailed as I feel comfortable to get.
The legislature said that you would provide treatment money, Medicaid money through. None has come. Is part of this plan to do what you said you'd do and get the treatment money, the federal treatment money, down to the street?
Rod, certainly the Medicaid bill that we passed a number of years ago has the potential and will bring $100 million to bear in the bill says, to homeless, those coming out of corrections. But that's a component. Our justice reform that we did in cooperation with the Pew Foundation, it had a fiscal note. We are putting ongoing money into behavioral health as a state, and we've done it for 3 consecutive years. There is that effort going on right now, Rod, so I don't want to leave the public with the impression that this is we're going to expect behavioral health without any dollars attached to it, but more should come.
You haven't delivered the money yet. You turned down the president's plan, you turned down the governor's plan, you had your own plan, and your own plan hasn't worked. Are you going to get the money to the people?
Great question. You should have come up in our meeting upstairs. It was you'd have fit right in. This is the issue. We passed a bill, and we passed it in both houses, and it was signed by the governor, and it's a plan that will work. And it was done during the Obama administration on conference calls with HHS and CMS, with the indication and at least the hat tip that those waivers we were requesting would be granted. They were not granted. They weren't denied, but they were not granted. Some were PCN and some other wonkish ones, but on the whole, it was not. We've been in direct conversations with the new administration. We're in a public comment process. We wanted to make sure that we crossed every T, dotted every I. We believe that those waivers will be granted. Those resources will come to bear this year. It might be late this year, but we'll work with our federal delegation. Some of that is the federal government's role, but we're not ignoring it nor crossing our fingers. We're actively lobbying to make sure that those resources come to bear.
You're blaming Washington. Blaming Washington isn't going to work, is it?
Hey, look, glad you said the word blame. There is no blame and there is no credit. We are all in this together, and to the extent that we have to do a better job of lobbying our Washington delegation and this new administration to grant this, it is part of our job now, is what we're going to do to bring those resources to bear. We are out of a blame. There is no blame. this is and you're highlighting the federal component of the issue on the treatment side. There's also a federal component on the law enforcement side. So we're working on this, Rod, together. I think that one of the challenges has been up till now, the legislature's role as team members has been, we've been paying the invoices. You want us to fund something, we're funding it, and we have the stakeholders, the service providers, the county, cities who engage and help implement it. It's too big for any of those entities by themselves to do it. We need a more overarching effort, state, communities coming together, elected officials are, but we're doing this all together and we're ramping up all these efforts. So we're going to turn up the heat to make sure that these waivers are granted and we get these Medicaid dollars on the ground, helping the people that need to be helped. And there's many more aspects to this.
I saw in the meeting before the doors were closed, a member of the National Guard in there. Governor, are you going to call out the National Guard to deal with this?
No. Let me just amplify what's being said here because, again, we understand there's a need for additional resources. We have cops on the street now. We need more. That's going to take some additional resources and funding. There's different buckets of money. Some of it's federal dollars, some of it's state dollars, some of it's local. But we'll fund as is necessary to put more cops on the street. We have a need for behavioral treatment. We're already doing some of that. We have a need for more of it. It's going to take additional resources. Again, in talking with the legislature and talking to the local government officials, we are going to put more resources in to make sure that we have those treatment, more bed space, more treatment bed space, not just criminal lockup, as we work with people to help them transition and improve their lives. So, yes, it's going to take more money. We are working on the Medicaid component part. That's being lobbied for now. Again, it is, as the speaker said, in a comment period. Our Department of Health is at the forefront and working on that. I expect that will come through in the next 2 or 3 months as we go through that process. But the need for more resources is a part of it, and it's going to come from different buckets of money, which we're going to work together to make sure that we have the resources necessary to have law enforcement and bed space as necessary for prosecution for treatment.
Governor, let's try to be specific. When will you declare a state of emergency regarding the Rio Grande war zone? Utahns want to know. I have a follow-up too, sir. And my follow-up is basically, would you like to see the state of Utah take over the management of the region? Thank you.
Yeah, the answer is no. I think we actually have a good team in place right now. It's not a war zone. It's certainly too much criminal element there. We certainly feel like that is not something we're going to tolerate. And again, we're working together in concert with law enforcement. This is not a rioting area. This is not where we've lost control with our law enforcement. This is just a need for additional augmentation of what we're already doing. We're doing good things. We just need to do more of it. And that costs money. And so the resources necessary. We need to coordinate better so that we're not wasting money. So this is about a collaborative effort, a coordinated effort between the local governments, the state, and the legislature, and working with our agencies and the private sector. And so you're going to see, I think, significant improvement in the conditions over the next coming weeks and months in the Rio Grande area. We don't need to call it the National Guard. Yes, sir.
So it doesn't sound like there'll be a drug czar, since you're all going to be working together?
Well, we may have a point person on helping. I don't know that we want to use the term czar. I mean,
we're done with Russian terms.
Yeah.
So we're not doing that.
Again, not that there's anything bad with the term czar, but per se. But we do need to have an executive director, which will help coordinate the different stakeholders here and make sure that we start executing better. We're going to be executing more. So again, our point person for us on the executive branch, we've asked the Lieutenant Governor. He's going to serve in that purpose. We'll see what that evolves into. That's part of the discovery we're doing right now. But we're going to start doing something more. It's not a matter of talking. We already have plans in place that are working. We just need more of it. So again, I think that the fact that we've come together with a commitment of all the different stakeholders is going to lead the way, and the Lieutenant Governor is going to help us coordinate that final step.
There's an opioid epidemic in this country that sort of parallels the influx of heroin. We have sort of a Mississippi River of heroin flowing into this country. We use 80% of the world's pharmaceutical opioids. I think what you're talking about is catching this on the back end. Is there anything we can do on the front end to keep these people from falling onto the street?
Well, I think we actually want to be proactive and catch it on the front end. That's, if we're catching on the back end, that's the ounce of prevention is worth the pound of cure. We certainly want to make sure we're on the front end. So let's let somebody in law enforcement speak to that, if you'd like to. Deputy Chief, would you like to come forth, Sean, and talk about what we're doing to stop drugs from coming in the first place?
Well, absolutely. You know, when you're talking about drug enforcement, there's a couple different ways that you have to attack, and one is supply, and the other one is demand, and both of them have to be attacked simultaneously. Now, we rely on some of our federal partners we rely on our federal partners to make sure that the supply that's coming into the country and to the state is minimized. Now, us as local law enforcement, not only do we partner with our DEA partners, with the FBI, as well as the other federal partners to try to curb down the supply, but on the back end, it is important. It is important that that person that has fallen down on the street, like you brought up, that we're in a position to help them and to get them back on their feet. So both mechanisms have to be in place, and this plan addresses both of those.
Can I mention real quick, because that's a great question. The analogy I like to use is the fence at the top of the cliff, the ambulance at the bottom. We do have people that are, I'm told by the DEA and Agent Besser, 4 out of 5 heroin users started with prescription drugs, opiates, painkillers. We can't afford, though, to be myopic and look at either the fence or the ambulance at the bottom, where we're seeing the addiction, we're seeing the drug trade, we're seeing the crime and the violence. We're going to be broad in our efforts. This press conference and this issue really is for the carnage that has occurred and is occurring. But you will find, and there's been press conferences here at the Capitol, and we continue to work with Attorney General Reyes. There's a task force that's looking at cracking down on the opiate abuse. We have worked even broad federally with our federal delegation to look for federal resources to buttress the efforts of the DEA in enforcing some of the crimes that occur around the opiate industry. So that's happening, but I don't want to confuse that with this effort. It's not one or the other. That effort is ongoing, and we are focused on that as policymakers. This one is really to deal with the consequences of the carnage, and certainly I think it's 99% of the pharma's opiate drugs are used by 5% of the world's population, and 99% of those drugs. So we've seen that grow over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's a national epidemic. Speakers of the House of other states, as I've been in conferences, have remarked about that challenge.
Lieutenant Governor,
One last question, and we'll break it up. Okay.
If you're going to be the point person, like what the governor just said, when will we get more details about what this is going to entail?
I think it's important to note, as the speaker said, that anytime you're dealing with the criminal element, we're not going to be broadcasting widely the plans to deal with that. You've heard a broad overview. I would say just a couple areas, and this is important because I know the citizens are anxious. They want to know, are you really doing something, or is this just another meeting? Is this just another committee? This is not just another meeting, as the speaker so eloquently put it. This is unlike 99% of the meetings we sit in that lead to another meeting. This one led to some concrete answers and results that we'll start to see immediately. I will tell you the first priority is going to be bed space. Okay, because you can't start to crack down if you don't have a place to put people. And so the very first discussions out of the gate are going to be, and they'll be happening very quickly. This is not something where we're going to get together next month and talk about bed space. We're going to get together this afternoon and start talking about these other issues that need to be taken care of. But where are the people going to go once we start to move this down? Because what we don't want to happen is to go in
and just disperse the problem into other communities or into other neighborhoods. That doesn't solve anything. That just makes the problem worse. That exacerbates things. So we're not going to tell the drug lords from other countries that are paying attention right now to Salt Lake City. They'll be watching this closely because that's what they do. We're not going to let them know when we're going to come and how we're going to come, but we are going to come. And so if you want to go someplace else and get out of Utah, now's a great time to do it, because it's going to get a lot more difficult on them in the days and weeks to come.
All right, well, thanks to everybody here. And again, I will break up, and for those of you who'd like to do some one-on-ones, I know the elected officials will make themselves available to you. We thank you. Again, I think this is a significant occasion as we see a collaborative effort. Some of this is not just reinventing the wheel, some of this is just making sure we're working together in concert and implementing in maybe greater fashion what we're already doing. So I think good things are ahead for us when it comes to cleaning up the Rio Grande area. So I thank the elected officials for their efforts today. Thank you very much, and we'll stand adjourned.